Montoya. I mean, spell it differently, but as you hear the name Montoya, Montoya scores Rangers' first goal in European competition this season, and immediately I start thinking about Old Man Montoya. Old Man Montoya is a character in Ernest Hemingway's Fiesta, released in the States in 1926, 100 years ago. This novel, released in the States 100 years ago, under the name The Sun Also Rises. Got it behind me there. It's one of my favourite novels. Sometimes I've called it my favourite novel, but it's really short. You can read it in one sitting kind of thing, so it's much easier to go back and read it constantly again and again and see more and more things in it and examine Hemingway's style, easy as that is. And it's a fantastic book. I mean, Middlemarch is probably better, but it's so long. Who's got time to read Middlemarch more than once in their life? I'm going to have to find time because I need some sort of other form of inspiration. Rangers just not providing it right now. But I love Montoya. He's not in Fiesta very much, Montoya, but he's very, very significant, very symbolic, as everything is Hemingway's iceberg style, right? You know, the meaning's all below the surface, so but the First World War, but the war's mentioned about twice in the entire novel. You know, it's the meaning's all below the surface, and there's very little on the surface, and it's what's in between. It's all subtextual, and it's just utterly fantastic piece of writing. But the story itself is set in Pamplona. It's the Feast of San Ferman. You know, the bulls are running on the bulls, that kind of stuff. That's the fiesta of the title. And Montoya is he's a Basque. He's from Pamplona. He's owned this hotel for years and years. But he's an aficionado. He's an aficionado of bullfighting. He knows all the bullfighters. He knows the history of bullfighting. He loves it. He absolutely loves it as a sport, a passion, a pursuit. The way you and me feel about football. And Jake Barnes, who's the protagonist, the main character, the narrative voice, the narrator of The Sun Also Rises, of Fiesta, who had his balls blown off, or maybe his cocks. It's various parts down below. He's had, no, below the surface. He's had them blown off. It's kind of emasculated him. It's a metaphor for how people were feeling after the First World War. But he seems intact to the outside world. Again, a metaphor for how people were feeling after the First World War. They'd been through the ravages, or they'd lost people, and they were devastated. They looked normal on the surface, but they would go and do crazy things because of the after effects of the First World War, the lost generation, all that kind of stuff. And Jake Barnes he's American, and he loves bullfighting, so it's quite rare that a Spaniard, or a Basque in the case of Montoya, would totally respect him, would respect a foreigner and their feeling for bullfighting. But Jake's such a passionate aficionado himself of the bullfighting, that when he goes to the hotel, he brings all his friends, all his rich idiot friends, broken in their own ways, to stay at the hotel during the Feast of San Ferman, which they don't really appreciate. They're just there as typical tourists. Montoya, the hotel owner, he's there waiting for Jake, and he shakes him by the hand and immediately starts talking to him about the bulls that are going to be running that year and what they look like. And he's really proud of this young bullfighter, Pedro Romero. Sounds like somebody that Spurs would sign just now. Pedro Romero's a great young bullfighter who, of course, like all great bullfighters, is pure of heart and of nature, and thinks only of bullfighting. But of course, Jake introduces Pedro Romero to Lady Brett Ashley, and she's damaged goods. She's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. She's beautiful, but she's damaged goods, like everybody else in it, and she's toxic. And Romero falls for her straight away, and it distracts him from the bullfighting. It ruins his career, and by the end of Jake's stay, the novel moves on to France and all that, but by the end of Jake's stay at Pamplona, Montoya is just blanking him. Doesn't want to see him. Doesn't look at him straight in the face. He's lost him as a And when Montoya scores the first goal for Rangers in Europe this season, I'm thinking, it's a beautiful sign, because Montoya's the man. Montoya's it's a byword for somebody who appreciates. If not these wankers who were getting tickets for the World Cup final, who've been to about 3 football matches in their life, junket merchants, tourists. This is somebody who actually loves the sport. And I thought, this is a great sign. This is a good sign. You know, that after just 4 minutes of our first European match, Montoya, it's spelled differently. And it's spelled different because he's Portuguese. The Guilherme Montoya, who scores at William, basically Billy Montoya, scores our first goal tonight. Scores our only goal of the game tonight, but it turns out he's Portuguese. He spells it differently from Old Man Montoya, the Spanish spelling, the Basque spelling of that character, and The Sun Also Rises, maybe the greatest novel ever written. But he's Portuguese because he was born in Lisbon. He played for Norwich City, where a place where Russell Martin is an absolute hero. Norwich City, a place where another guy, somebody who did our only ever victory in Spain. A certain Philip Clement was the manager. Our only competitive victory in Spain against Spanish opposition. Of course, we had two series. We had a much more famous victory in the country of Spain, albeit in Catalonia in 1972. But Philip Clement, he ends up being manager of Norwich as well. But Jagiellonia Montóia, the left back for Jagiellonia Bialystok, who scored the own goal that opened the scoring tonight. He was born in Lisbon, which is the city which we're most famous, of course, for Rangers beating Benfica 3-0 in 1949, an exhibition match at the Estadio Nacional in Lisbon, and we were nicknamed the Benfica players, and the Lisbon press called us the Tigers, the Tigers. Tigers of Lisbon, because we were so magnificent. The Costilla Metallica, so the Iron Curtain team, the treble winning team, the first ever domestic treble in Scotland, 1949. If European competition started a bit earlier, perhaps Rangers would have won the European Cup, but that's Lisbon is the curse on us. Everything about Rangers is about winning the European Cup, now known as the Champions League. It's about becoming champions. Since 1967, since Celtic won the European Cup in Lisbon, that has, for me anyway, always been the ultimate aim. That's what Rangers should always ultimately be aiming. Even when we're in the third division, the immediate task, get out of the third division, get back to being champions of Scotland. Then we'll deal with Europe. But we go back to being champions of Scotland by halfway along that journey, starting to do really well in Europe under Steven Gerrard. That was the route back to greatness for Rangers, the route back to full self-respect. Celtic had the domestic scene locked down, so we went in via Europe and did things that Celtic couldn't do in Europe, and it was another arena in which to become ourselves again. And for me, if you want to be an aficionado, if you want to really appreciate Rangers, if you want to appreciate football at all, you have to be able to do it in Club Europe. It's all about representing on the continent, particularly when you come from a domestic league like ours, where Rangers and Celtic are so massive that you're just a bully. You're just a bully in a wee kid's playground. You might go into the big boys' playground and show there. And we've been in 5 European finals, and I'm so proud of that. And I want us to be getting back to that eventually. The target for Rangers seems ridiculous just now. The last time we were the Champions League, we were getting scalped 7-1 by Liverpool and stuff like that. But there's always tectonic plate shifts in football and how football's organised, and the power shifts. Now, in my lifetime, I've seen Rangers be the biggest, most powerful club in Britain. The only club in Britain to have played in the Champions League group stages for a few years. It was ourselves. Man United couldn't get there. And there's been tectonic plate shifts going on this very week, the last couple of weeks, with the relationship between UEFA and FIFA finally breaking down. You never know. We've just always got to have it there. We've just always got to have it. Celtic, if Celtic can win it, then we can win it. That's our neighbours, that's our big rivals, and we scalp them historically, they scalp us historically. We don't fear each other. It's just so anything they can do, we can do too, and that's the one thing they've done that is significantly better than anything we've done. We've got to become champions. So it's all about Europe for me. It's all about Europe, and if you're going to be a proper Rangers manager for me, you've got to be doing stuff in Europe as well. But there seems to be an agreement has been made. It's not even subtextual in a Hemingway sort of way. It's been said out loud, I think, by Derek McInnes as well. The Rangers supporters have certainly said it to me. It's certainly a discussion that's been had that our European achievements of the 2020s have somehow held us back domestically, and we need to you need to park the European stuff, and then we'll be able to get the league back. And for some reason, that's I mean, obviously, I want to win the league. I hate it when we can't stop Celtic domestically, no matter how bad things got for them last season. Celtic, they still end up winning the league. Keep hearing this. It was the most exciting SPFL Premiership campaign of all time last season. There's no way Scottish football can match the excitement of last season. How's it exciting when it's the same team that's won? And it's exciting for Celtic. You know, it's gutting for Hearts, but it's just, well, was it 14 of the last 15 titles Celtic have won? It's the opposite of exciting. It's the opposite of interest. It's just a different way of doing the same old shit. So, yeah, we need to be getting ourselves back to being champions of Scotland, but I think it's a dangerous thing to think that you throw away something you're good at in order to do that. Now, we're shit in Europe and in the domestic scene last season, so tonight, the way things went down after old man Montoya opened the scoring for Rangers, if we're going to go out of European competition, if we're going to even slip down into the Conference League, it's very early in the season, but Derek McInnes really needs to have established that he's going to do well domestically. With a bad performance on Friday night against Dundee United, he needs to get a good solid win over HIBS, who won the last time they were at Ibrox, and they were celebrating at the moment that basically cost Hearts the title as well that night. The small travelling support from Easter Road at that particular game. They're taking the piss, their players are taking the piss out Tav and all that. It was horrible. So the idea that we're going to, Hibs are playing in Europe tonight as well, I don't know how they're getting on, but I hope it's, whatever happens, it suits Rangers, because Derek McInnes needs to show that we're going to do something domestically and it's worth fucking up in Europe if that's the intention, because we certainly seem to be well on the way to it. Wasn't it? But there's no way without this. It's, as they always say, it's half time. It's only half time in the tie, and the second half is going to be Ibrox. It's only a 1-goal deficit, but I think without the away goals thing now, a 1-goal deficit is even more dangerous than it used to be from when you're coming back to the Ibrox, when you're away from home in the first leg to lose 1-0. It's somehow it's quite. I feel it's in the but it's a really solid result for Jagiellonia Bialystok. They should definitely be favourites now to go through. And the idea of Rangers slipping out the Europa League with everything that it's meant to us, the Europa League basically dragged us back to winning the title as well before we got to the final of the Europa League. But to winning the Scottish League title, I think it's a dangerous thing for us to go out of this competition, for us to see this game, this tie against Jagiellonia, as a kind of experiment. It's worth mixing and matching various players to see how they're performing. I know the squad is a new squad, they are gelling, but it's pretty flippant. But what I should do is a tradition in this podcast, that if Rangers have a bad night, I will then, or a bad result, there's going to be a lot of Schadenfreude seekers. Quite right, fair enough, you're more than welcome. People when we support Celtic or anybody else really in Scotland. Everybody seems to hate Rangers. That's an honour as far as I'm concerned. That's how you know you're a proper big club. It's when they stop talking about you that you need to be worried. But people come on, they just want to see me in pain, and believe me, I am. I always am when Rangers don't get a good result. But I feel as if it's not that disastrous. With disastrous moments in that game tonight, it was disastrous patches of play from Rangers, but we've only lost by a single goal. We've hit the woodwork. We had moments where we looked pretty good as well. So there's certain mitigation, tiny bits of amelioration. It's not an out-and-out disaster, but nevertheless, it could end up being part one of what becomes a bit of a footballing calamity for us. So as a kind of compromise, I'll just start with my snagging items. That should be enough to. Usually I'll go and do a kind of long, anywhere between 10 minutes to 45 minutes, usually ranting and raving about a particular subject, like the novels of Hemingway, that any kind of passing casual football fan would be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about now? Actually, they're going to enjoy my pain. Well, they're going to get a bit of pain through the log hole. You'll get that same pain through your log hole if you tune into my podcast after Rangers have had a great result, because I'm just really boring by nature, as well as fat and old and baldy and specky. But that's usually the idea. So, but it's not been too disastrous in it. It's not been an out-and-out calamity. Things are still in the balance, just a tad tense. So what I'll do by way of a compromise is I'll just go through my snagging items, which I always have in a podcast, any podcast I put out there, but I'll put them to the front of the pod before I get into the stuff that happened in the game. The items in my previous podcast, which was an hour and a half long, so I'm trying to get one that's out there a bit. I'm trying to get a bit of a faster pod, a quicker pod out there for the Rangers supporters that watch this, but at the same time it'll look like you're chickening out. You run 20-minute podcast because you get beat. Big chat last night, hour and a half last night in the preview pod, talking about Europe and what you're going to do and how you get a great record against Polish clubs in Europe and you're the big I am, and now you get beat. Only 20 minutes, that's me away from you in a big huff and all that. No, so I've got to kind of front up at the same time a wee bit, but I also need to keep it, try and get it below the hour mark, just because folk will be getting sick of tuning into these never-ending marathon-length podcasts. But I'll start with my snagging items from my preview pods. And I was talking about Górnik Zabrze all night in that podcast because it's the only Polish club that we've played twice in Europe, and it's also the only Polish club ever to reach a European final. And they beat us en route to reaching that final, the 1969-70 Cup Winners' Cup final, did Górnik. I was talking about them all through that pod, and I said, I hope that I didn't get to it the second time we played them in the 87-88 European Cup. I was at the tie before that against Dynamo Kiev, and I was at the game after that against Stoy Bucharest, the games at Ibrox, but I wasn't at the home leg against Gornik. I've never seen Gornik, so it's a European finalist I need to get off my list. I've seen 82 out of the 109 clubs, teams, sides that have reached a European club final, and Gornik are a massive omission, so I was kind of listing all the teams that we could get if we got into the group stage of the Europa League that I could tick off my other Anorak list. And I said I think Gornik are in the Champions League and they're going to... There's Gornik in the Europa League. Gornik aren't in the Champions League, as I said in my preview pod. They are actually in the Europa League qualifiers. They played last night and they lost by a single goal to Fradi. They lost 1-0 to Ferencváros in Budapest. We know about losing by a single goal to Ferencváros in Budapest. So they're actually in the Europa League qualifiers, and it's quite tight as well. They're as tight as we are, losing by 1 goal away from home. The first leg in their third round qualifying tie. Item number 2, I did not mention in my Franco Baresi tribute in last night's podcast on Wednesday night's Jagiellonia Bialystok preview pod. I did not mention my pride in the fact that I was talking about the Milan team in 93-94 who won Serie A by conceding only 15 goals in the league all season, and I think they scored only 30 odds. Basically, they won Serie A by 2 goals to 1. They won a lot of games, 1-0, 2-1, and drew a few 0-0. It was based on Franco Baresi and Alessandro Costa Curta, Billy Costa Curta, their defensive bulwark, the 2 centre halves, 2 stoppers in that great Milan side, and Baresi, and it made it even more fantastic what happened in the Champions League final when Baresi and Costa Curta were suspended. But I forgot to mention that made me extra proud in 2020-2021 when Rangers won the title 55 and we only conceded 13 goals in 38 league games as opposed to the 15 that Milan has scored. And I'd put this up on social media at the time and Celtic fans get in touch going, you're deluding yourself. You try to make out that winning Rangers conceding 13 goals in the SPFL Premiership against likes of Aberdeen and Hamilton Accies, and that is the same as Milan only conceding 15 goals in 34 games against Inter and Juventus. No, I wasn't trying to say that at all. I tried to say Rangers were better. Rangers were better. What we did was actually a better achievement because we played 38 league games. That Milan team played. I just forgot to mention that was quite a nice sweet tie, and it made you extra proud. The British defensive record for Rangers kind of tied up with Milan. Saw Franco Baresi playing at Ibrox for the Milan Legends and also for the Italian national team, and I saw him in the San Siro. Go back and watch that if you don't want to talk about Rangers game tonight in Poland. And it's why it ended up that season 93-94 when Baresi wasn't playing in the Champions League final against the Cruyff's Barcelona dream team of Stoichkov and Romario. It was an even greater, the greatest European performance of all time as far as I'm concerned, with the scalped that Barcelona side for it. It's the greatest ever European performance of all time until Rangers and Bialystok tonight, which was utterly sensational. Snagging item number 3, something else I got all wrong in that podcast. It was only about 8 snagging items. It's quite a good one. I didn't cover the pre-match presser. Didn't cover Derek McInnes and Cammy Devlin talking in Poland in the pre-match presser on Wednesday night because I was recording my preview pod. But I stopped the day last night, and I was recording my preview pod while that was actually going out on Rangers TV or whatever. So I missed it. So I was completely. The Nico Raskin stuff passed me by. I was saying and predicting my starting 11. I couldn't see anyway how Nico Raskin was going to play or even be in the squad. Really probably wouldn't go to Poland because his head's all over the place. He's obviously going to get a transfer somewhere else. No, apparently not. Completely wrong. More on that later. So I missed the press. A few things in that I could have included. And number 4, snagging out number 4, Majdanek. The concentration camp, Majdanek. I was talking about concentration camp. It was a great, really cheery podcast. It was all about the concentration camps. It was in Lublin. There's a museum to it. They've still got the buildings and that preserved. Majdanek death camp really is in Lublin, where we of course played Dynamo Kiev. I've got to mention this Majdanek because we played Dynamo Kiev there 2 years ago in the Champions League qualifier. So there's 2 different ways you can remember Majdanek. It's either or Lublin. You can remember Cyril Dessers equalising in the last minutes of a first leg that set up what turned out to be a damp squib Dynamo Kiev at Hampden in the second leg, or you can remember 78,000 approximately being murdered by the Nazis in a concentration camp. That's 2 different ways you can remember Lublin. And we saw tonight, in keeping with the general moods, that the overheads, the drones quite dangerous in that part of the world, just on the border with Belarus, but the drones overhead filming the stadium tonight for the outdoor broadcast coverage of the Chorlton Arena. Is situated right amongst woodland. There's lots of woodland, decorative or whatever it is, part of the forest, in which they were shooting 2,000 people a night at one point. 2,000 Jewish people a night, the Nazis, for a couple of nights in the summer of 1943, I think. In Bialystok, before there was enough of that last night, enough of the liquidation of the Jewish ghetto, turning it into a ghetto, just annihilating half the population of Bialystok in the 1940s, the Nazis, but that was the woods in which they killed them. The pogroms had been happening long before the Nazis arrived in Poland, the Jewish population there, but horrific stuff. But those woods, they got them in there and shot about 4,000 over the course of a couple of nights before they started using them more. They'd also burned down, of course, the synagogue with between 800 and 2,000 Jewish people inside it, burned them all alive. They did that as well before using the much more efficient method of the concentration camps, which are all around that area. You get Kelmo, you get Treblinka, you get Auschwitz-Birkenau, all around about that area, and Majdanek is one of them. Snagging item number 5, Amica Ronki. I was talking about us beating Amica Ronki 5-0 Polish club. It doesn't exist anymore. Just talking about Rangers against Polish clubs in European competition. We beat Amica Ronki 5-0 in the UEFA Cup group stage, which UEFA brought in for about 4 or 5 seasons of the UEFA Cup, which was a kind of forerunner of this format they have now in the Swiss system. Group stages in the 3 competitions we have now, where you only play your opponents away from home or at home. I don't think I might play them home and away. You might get the full experience, but they did this. It was 5-team group stages, and you would have played 2 clubs away from home and 2 clubs at home. And we played Amica Ronki away from home, Polish club, beat them 5-0. And I said that was under Paul Le Guen. So that was the season we qualified. There was 2 seasons we played in the UEFA Cup group stages when they were brought in. One of them was under Alec McLeish, and we didn't go through. One of them was under Paul Le Guen, and we did go through. And so 1 in 2 chance of getting that wrong, and I got it wrong. Robert got in touch today to let me know I'd got that one wrong there, so apologies for that. We played Auxerre in both times we were in the UEFA. We also played Auxerre in the Champions League group stages, but we played Auxerre both times in the UEFA Cup group stage. The first time was at Ibrox. They beat us 2-0. That was us out. I was under Alec McLeish. The second time we drew 2 each in Auxerre, and we went through. And it was Walter Smith that picked up the knockout stages after we qualified, because Paul Le Guen was away because he couldn't win the league, and that was the main thing in the days. But I also Graz. We beat Graz, the other team in Graz. Sturm Graz beating us last season in Europe. That's where we got Big Chukwani from. But the other club in Graz, we played them, and after having played Sturm Graz in the Champions League group stages, we played Grazer AK at Ibrox. I think they're called Liebherr. That's the big kind of plant firm, the mechanical plant, the tractors and all that. You see the diggers and stuff like that, going about Liebherr stuff. But we played them at Ibrox and beat them. And I thought that was under Paul Le Guen as well, because basically all the good results I thought would go towards. I remember us beating Livorno. First time we beat Italians in Italy, that was the one under Paul Le Guen. But I thought Amica Ronki got it right. So it was 2006-2007 was Paul Le Guen, but Amica. Snagging item number 6. Daisuke Yokota, the Japanese player that basically confirmed as having signed just yesterday and yet was playing tonight. No wonder he was playing tonight, because he used to play for Gornik Zabrze. I'm talking about Gornik all the way through that podcast last time, a preview pod. I did not realise until I went onto social media and saw Daisuke Yokota himself had posted a hashtag with Gornik Zabrze on it. I'm thinking, what? Turns out he's played for them. He played for Gornik, so he would probably have played against Jagiellonia. He'd probably have played in the stadium he was playing in tonight in the first half. So that was a massive omission. Number 7, Vincent Pastore, big pussy from Sopranos. He died. Forgot to mention him. R.I.P. Big Pussy. He died on Saturday at the weekend there. Also in Mickey Blue Eyes. A bit in Goodfellas as well, but he's also in Mickey Blue Eyes, which is one of these films you think absolute mince. And it is absolute mince. Hugh Grant playing, believe it or not, a posh English bloke. But he's got a kid on. His girlfriend, who's like, she's an art dealer or something like that, an art historian. It's Jean Triplehorn, I think. But her dad's James Caan. He's like a mobster. So he's got to end up kidding on he's a mobster. It's like Mickey Blue Eyes and all that. Forget about it. He's got to learn how to say forget about it. He's so posh in English, and it's a total. So it's really fun. It's one of the films you should watch on Saturday night. You go to get something in to eat, like you're having a night in, you get a carry out, and like, food wise, and maybe a few drinks later on. But it's the one you want to watch the film at the beginning of the night. That's a good one. Mickey Blue Eyes. It's good fun. It's a good family film, I think. There's no swearing on that, is it? It's a good film. I quite enjoyed it, and of course, James Caan. Santino Corleone, actually Jewish James Caan, but Big Pussy. That's it. He's got a part in that film. He's fantastic. But Vincent Pastore, but as Big Pussy in The Sopranos, that is in the days before you could actually stream everything and watch the next episode or something as long as it's been made. You can just watch the entire series in one night, do the box set thing. When you had to actually wait a full week to get the next episode. There's a few moments in television history where I'm like, no, I don't want the titles to come up. I feel it's like A Farewell to Arms. I'm reading that, another Hemingway book. I remember they get the blank pages at the end because the publishers always need to put in a certain amount of pages. And if the novel finishes early, it finishes before they've used up all, there's blank pages at the end. And I remember sitting reading A Farewell to Arms for the first time, and it's like, it can't end like this. That can't be harsh, brutal ending and flipping through the blank pages. Going, no. Same thing when it comes to Big Pussy. Do you forget about the Rangers game the night? The Big Pussy in The Sopranos, that storyline where Tony and Polly are totally, this is our pal we're talking about here. This is my pal. Love the guy. Can't he fucking just, is he a rat? Is he a rat? And I remember one night sitting there on the credits, the end credits are coming up. I'm like, no, in The Sopranos, you cannot end. I want to know what's happening with Big Pussy. That was, so R.I.P. Vincent Pastore, died at 80 years old on Saturday. And number 8, Martin O'Neill. I had no idea. I honestly had no idea. It's not a Rangers supporter squeaking out of this or whatever. I know folks start getting... It's one of the things. Martin O'Neill is in hospital, and when I was recording this podcast, my preview pod last night, I genuinely had no idea that the man was in hospital. He's getting some procedure. But if you've been listening to me talking over the last year or ever talking about Martin O'Neill since about 2003 or whatever, you would know that I don't like him. I really don't like him. I was saying last... I don't want the guy to be ill. You know what I mean? It's quite the opposite. It would be unbelievably hypocritical for me to start doing the kind of sending flowers, hands across it's the greatest respect for the man. I don't. You've got to respect his achievements. You really have. And obviously he's very dear to Celtic people who are very dear to me, but Martin O'Neill himself, I don't like. And I've lost a few pals, online pals, Celtic folk who were getting in touch just out of interest in the stuff I was chatting about on these podcasts. My comments about Martin O'Neill. I was basically saying, to try and illustrate it, I was saying that I wanted Celtic to get Pep Guardiola or Luis Enrique. As I might get a far better manager. You know, it's not about success or whatever. It's just I don't like Martin. A bit like Neil Lennon, that kind of cause trouble rather than accept defeat type of thing. Just that's part of their methodology, and I'm not. We don't need that here as. So I couldn't be super hypocritical anyway. It would be insulting for me to start giving it, oh my God, that's an absolute shame. But I don't want anything to happen to the guy. You can believe that because, from a cynical point of view, I literally wish Martin O'Neill a speedy recovery. I want him to get back to peak fitness and get back in that dugout because as I've said before, I was delighted when he stayed on Celtic manager because I don't want him disappearing over the horizon with a wee double under his arms, just giving it your beauty. Just nipped back in, did Rangers a couple of times, won the league in the cup and I'm away again. Typical. I don't want that. I want it to be us that hunt him. I did say Martin O'Neill always goes out as a martyr. He's up, but I didn't mean literally. No, surely he's no literally went to martyr himself. So, and apart from anything else, if anything happens with Martin O'Neill, it'll be us that get blamed. It'll be a matter of time to well, he did say the only trouble he noticed in that Scottish Cup game was the Union bells coming on. It's probably like a delayed heart attack. He's had, that's probably what's killed him. It was the Rangers supporters basically murdered him. You know, so I don't want anything bad happening to Martin O'Neill, and you can take it from me. It's 100% true when I say I want him back to full fitness. I do wish him the very best in terms of his health. An instant full recovery back in that Celtic dugout as soon as possible. So is that, I mean, that's a half an hour really, and I've not talked about. How you doing, folks? This is your Fat Egg immediate post. Rangers haven't won a meaningful game. I had a truly positive result, really, since the 12th of April this year. I know we've had the World Cup in between with the summer break and all that, but we haven't had a meaningfully positive result since the 12th of April's 6-3 win over Falkirk at the Falkirk Stadium that put us a point off the top of the league and made us think, get into that split, get into that SPFL Premiership split. We are in fine form. We are right in the back wheel of Hearts. We are going to run right over the top of them, but we're looking fantastic. It's just suddenly with nothing. We had another win at Falkirk, again back there on the last day of the season after 4 straight defeats in the League Two. all the last people we want to be getting beat by, and that was a total dead rubber, and it was Danny Rowe's last game. It was a day Celtic beat Hearts to win the title as well. Just total ignominious, horrible day the last time we did actually win a game, but we haven't had a meaningful, positive result since the 12th of April. And having won just 3 out of the 14 European games we played last season, I'm now wondering if we'll actually get to play as many as 5 European games this season, because if we drop out in this, if we lose to Jagiellonia over the 2 legs, the Conference League playoff is not a gimme. I now can reveal exclusively to you that tonight's defeat means we have won just one of our last 12 European matches. Rangers have won just one of our last 12, a dozen European competition matches. Reaction pod coming to you in association with Jersnet and also in association with Benmar, Superbet, Polski Sklepy, Ceramica as well. I don't know what it is they make. White Bear Coffee, Het Jaga Go, and also Koku Sushi. It doesn't really matter what the product is, as long as it's on both an LCD advertising hoarding and one of the old manky kind of tarpaulins that hangs for the front of your stand there, for the front row, which is about 6-7 feet above the ground. I think it represents Polish football, the kind of threat it's become. Again, the Polish national team, always really good, particularly the communist era. Sorry, a tragic thing to say. It's know why you want teams to be good at football, because they're restricting the movement of it, and people have got nothing else to do, really, and they're being pushed by political figures and all that behind the scenes. But they were great. They finished third, I think, at the 1974 World Cup and also the 1982 World Cup. Did Poland or did France beat them? No, France won the 1986 third-fourth place playoff, but they lost it. Good record in third-fourth place playoffs of being there, anyway, the French. But the Poles, I think they've also finished in the top 4, the last 4 of another World Cup as well, back in the day, Poland. But fantastic record in the Olympics. The communist nations, or the Warsaw Pact nations at the time, the Soviet Union was basically controlling all of Eastern Europe. They really took the Olympic men's football tournament seriously, so the Poles did well in that as well. Fantastic footballing nation, but their clubs don't really. There's only one club has ever reached a European club final, Gornik, and they lost that 1969-70 Cup Winners' Cup final to Manchester City. So they seem to kind of fall away after the collapse of the Iron Curtain and what have you. Polish clubs, always dangerous as clubs back in the day. So they did for Davy White as Rangers manager, Gornik, in that 69-70 Cup Winners' Cup, but yeah, they seem to be coming back in a way that was summed up, I think, by the combination of, it's almost like the local shops. I don't know what sells White Bear coffee, but it's like you get at the juniors and you get a tarpaulin, or you have to make your own tarpaulin and bring it along to the stadium, and they hang it up at the back. But in front of that, on the tracks, on the actual, along the byline, on the kind of pitch side, you've got the modern, flashy LCD advertising. But sometimes it was the same products in both the tarpaulin and the LCD advertising. I thought it was a good representation of the state Polish football was in. They've started getting back into group stages quite a lot. Polish clubs, they're starting to threaten again, and none more so than Jagiellonia Bialystok, who are done well in the Conference League. They qualified from the Conference League group stage the last 2 seasons, and now they're looking to up it and get themselves into the Europa League group stage. We've been there on the up in Europe, getting progressively better in Europe season upon season. I want to go back to that. My name is Alec Anderson. Something filled up my heart with nothing. Someone told me not to cry. Now that I'm older, my heart is colder, and I can see that it's a lie. Etc., etc. Children, wake up, hold your mistake up before they turn the summer into dust. Okay, my name is Alec Anderson, and the summer wasn't quite turned into dust. Oh, these cities lying dust. There's always a bit of Susie wanting to come out there, isn't there? But the summer wasn't turned into dust. It seemed quite prevalent tonight at the Tom Miller and Jamie Murphy doing a BBC, Liam McLeod and Faddy covering World Cup games in Mexico, where they're obviously in some studio and somewhere outside Boston. But I think Tom Miller and Jamie Murphy are probably somewhere in Mogai, Govan kind of area as they're covering the events in Bialystok tonight. The cameras hovering over the Chawton Arena, but I think a combination of the weather, the sunny weather, the temperatures of having the hydration breaks in the games, a tea time kick-off, the kind of high front rows with massive adverts dropping down as well. It looked like a World Cup game. It did look like it was a kind of nice wee segue from the World Cup summer through into club competition in the summer. It looked like a World Cup game until it kicked off. A big tifo in the home end from your Jagiellonia Bialystok fans that heroes aren't born, they're built. And it was Iron Man. Iron Man was the figure. And I guess he's red and yellow like their colours, isn't he? Iron Man. So heroes aren't born, they're built, said their English language tifo. Or in the case of Lauren Shankland, heroes aren't born, they're benched. They're benched in their second competitive game of their Rangers career. Dan Neil started in the second competitive Rangers game of his Rangers career. He didn't start on Friday night against Dundee United. But he's not starting at Tannadice. And then, that makes sense, he's back in tonight. So to Youssef Chermiti, he was a notable omission from the starting 11 at Tannadice. The two of them coming on in the second half to improve things instantly, or not enough. But it's not like there wasn't massive omissions from the starting 11 tonight as well. Still, Daisuke Yokota, a new Japanese signing who has played in Poland before, so he should know the score. And he was there. He was just at Murray Park yesterday, Auchenhowie yesterday, and then there he is by the magic of modern transport. He's starting the game for us today. That was quite a bit of a surprise, but because understandable. Big Chuck Wani, what happened to him? We're kind of starting to write him off a bit. Didn't think he was fancied, but he's back in and he seemed to be kind of playing at 10. I was expecting a 4-4-2. I wanted a 4-3-3, but we actually played a 4-2-3-1. But there was no Shankland. There was McInnes, that was signed, the South African international, that was signed from Philadelphia Union. He's a centre half with the injury to Ben Godfrey on Friday night. He's out for a month. I thought he would go in at centre half alongside Big Fernandes, which would let Dujon Sterling play at right back. But no, it was Dujon at right back with Fernandes and Robbie McCrory as a goalkeeper. Ross McCrory was playing at right back. He was playing at right back, and we had the one and only Tour Romans staying at left back. Ivor Pander in goals. Cammy Devlin was still on the bench. Nico Raskin. Cammy Devlin being relegated to the bench, maybe a bit of a surprise for some people. Nico Raskin being on the bench at all, a surprise for some people. After last night to kind of put this in context, when today I watched last night's pre-match presser from Derek McInnes, and he was looking fantastic, very sports, very kind of smart, casual, very Russell Martin look. He's dressed in his blazer, but with a kind of crew neck shirt underneath it. He's using "so" at the start of sentences again, at the start of an answer to somebody. So, but last night, that annoys me. I hate it when people do that, but it's actually doing the right context when you remember that. The question he was being asked by the Hacks was getting translated by a translator into Polish. The person was reading it out in Polish, so it's like that's using it properly. So as I was saying, I always feel it's really pig ignorant when you ask somebody a direct question and they start off with "so," as if. Anyway, what I was talking about before you had the temerity to ask me a question in this question and answer scenario. But Derek McInnes actually, so to return to what you were saying before that guy started talking a whole lot of Polish, but he's referring back to something that had been. He was talking about Nico Raskin I assumed Nico Raskin. There was reports that he'd come back last Friday, the day of the Dundee United game at Tannadice, and there was reports that he'd come back on Monday. I don't know, Rangers Review, BBC. I'm not accusing him of getting it wrong. I listen to so many different sources, read so many different sources when it comes to Rangers. I can't even tell you who I got my information from. But I wasn't really sure what had happened, and I'm just assuming he's going to leave. Nico Raskin seems to be going to the point of gone now at the start of every season. It was the same under Russell Martin last season. He's going to be leaving, and then there was all these rumours that they'll have a big fallout. Then they very much did obviously have a kind of fallout as well, and he's dropped for he's not there when we play Celtic in the first All Firm game of last season in the league, the 0-0 at Ibrox. I'm doing my post-match reaction, so that'll be Nico Raskin away then. That's not he come back victoriously, and it was Russell Martin that was off. I just thought he was going to be going away. I didn't think his head could be right at all. I didn't think he could have any involvement really with having played in the World Cup quarter-final with Spain. Then he goes on holiday. He's not really had a chance to get into the mindset of Derek McInnes, to be coached by Derek McInnes, to have but there's these things apparently called telephones. Derek McInnes was talking about this in the best modern technology. I can't keep up with it at all. There's these things called telephones. He phoned him when he was on holiday to have a chat with him, and then I'm watching the Daisuke Yokota welcome to Rangers, his first day at training with Rangers up at Auchenhowie, and there's Nico Raskin in there as well, and like he's never been away. But I still thought, what's going to cost you more money? Nico Raskin getting injured or Rangers not getting into the Europa League group stages? Hopefully it's nip and tuck, and we expect to get a big transfer fee for Nico Raskin. We expect him to leave. If what he did in the World Cup with Belgium isn't enough of a short window, I don't know what ever will be. Does he want to stay? I don't know. I doubt it, highly doubt it. But I couldn't see him being involved at all. But he was on the bench, and Derek McInnes was talking about McCann getting his clearance through as well, getting his work permits, and he had to travel out separately via London to go and get his paperwork filled out and all that. It was great work by the recruitment team to get him ready to play. And so you thought he was going to be, he's out vibing the opponents. It's mind games, is it? Didn't work anyway because we get beat, but he wasn't playing. He didn't get off the bench at all. Big McCann at the centre half. Cammy Devlin, Nico Raskin. Devlin may be a surprise because he played quite well so far. Cammy Devlin, the friendlies up at United, up at Tannadice. Nico Raskin on the bench at all, but he come on, and the two of them come on in the second half. We were wearing the full home kit, includes. I'll complete the team in case you didn't notice. We played this 4-2-3-1, and it seemed to be in front of the four Pandora in goals, of course. And in front of the aforementioned four, it seemed like Dan Neil, who's wearing the captain's armband, and Diamandi were the sitters. They were nominally the sitting two. Chukwani is in a kind of 10 position. You've seen him playing wide right and all that in pre-season, but he's in a kind of 10 position, with Chermiti, the lone striker, and to the left it's Asgard, and to the right, with his left-footed ability, it was Yokota, the new Japanese signing out in the wing there. I think must have wanted Chukwani's physicality and his height basically to be paired up with Chermiti. It's not unusual just to play one striker away from home in Europe, but to not have the captain of the club, such a kind of cacophonous deal we made of the fact that we've signed Lawrence Shankland and we've made him captain in our first big European game. He's not starting the game. He's on the bench. It seemed a bit weird, but we've got so many options at this point in time that maybe any selection that was going to be weird, but that seemed particularly interesting. An interesting selection. We're wearing the full home kit, including the R&B's, red and black socks. Bialystok, Jagiellonia Bialystok, they actually looked more lawns, the kind of sang the blood and gold, or gold and blood, whatever it is, than Partick Thistle in the setup, the kit they were wearing. I expected it to look kind of Partick Thistle, but no, it was more kind of. And Pandora's in the kind of purple, was it mauve, a slightly purplish kit, which was reminding us of the kit that's not been very good for the outfield players were wearing it. No, Brian Laudrup wore it back in the day. We wore it a couple of seasons ago. It hasn't done us very well in Europe, but Pandora is probably our best player of the evening. In the 4th minute, 2 wrong. I mean, we started off terribly. Ross McCrory's all over the place should be getting the ball back, letting the ball go back to the keeper, and he's putting out for a shy, and then he's fouling somebody at that shy because Derek McInnes is shouting at him. It wasn't fucking pretty at all. We looked terrible, and then in the 4th minute we go 1-0 up. We'd had a goal down that left hand side, and Big Trinity slipped. The pitch was getting well hydrated before any of the players. That wasn't very promising, but then about 2 seconds later, it's a given goal with Romans doing that overlapping down the left hand side. And Diamandi, I don't ever think it's as bad as people were making out on Friday nights at his performance at Tannadice, but there's definitely still a lot to be done with. Diamandi's got to do a lot more if he wants to be living up to the expectations that we've had for him for a few seasons now. But he's a beautiful kind of take and turn and slipping it up the channel for Romans to pile on towards the byline and go in the box a little bit and do his thing. And he plays a fantastic ball right across the front of the goal, about 2-3 yards out across the 6-yard box, and in goes Big Trinity and completely misses it, but it goes to the front post and causes such a distraction. He misses the ball, and Montoya from Lisbon, Portuguese underage international, the ball just comes off him, goes into the bottom corner, and it's 1-0 to Rangers. And you're like, this is great. And then we have a few minutes of looking like we're going to score 2-3 more, and then it all falls to pieces. So we don't score 2 or 3 more, and Jagiellonia Bialystok's equaliser is every bit as horrific from a footballing point of view for us as the own goal opener was for Jagiellonia. I mean, the ball goes out wide. It's one of the players out wide. I think they're playing a 4-4-2, Jagiellonia Bialystok, and the guy comes in from the wing. He's coming in from their left wing, but he's on his right foot, and he swings the ball. It's a cross just into the middle of our box. I think it's Fernandez. Fernandez makes a lunge at it as opposed to kind of staying on his feet and getting a proper contact with the ball. But it just perfect. It's a bit like the goal we lost at Tannadice the other night. It's a perfect combination of little fuck ups turning in their combination to a major fuck up. He just puts enough on the ball to distract Dujon Sterling, who's behind him. He's got a player he's trying to cover, and so Dujon Sterling misses the ball altogether, and it just rolls into the far corner because the goalkeeper Pando's totally unsighted as well. So it just goes right across our box, right across our goal, and into the far corner. It's a catalogue of errors. It's a car crash. It's a terrible, terrible goal to lose, just like the goal we lost at Tannadice the other night was a terrible goal to lose. And then any time we try to go forward after that, Jagiellonia are totally settled down now. They look like scoring. And we're finding about wee flicks from Dan Neil at the edge of the box. Asgard's kind of drifting in and out of the game. We don't look very convincing at all. And then in the 21st minute, Dan Neil tries another. It's like Dan Neil and Diamandi were a very kind of unconvincing, stuttering engine room tonight. There was more steam than fire coming. There's very little coal power in that boiler of that engine room tonight. It wasn't very good. They did a couple of moments. Diamandi's knocking a few, kind of 30-yard passes across the pitch, and Dan Neil did a couple of things like pick out people on the wing or whatever with a 25 to 30-yard kind of cross-field pass. But it was actually when we pushed up, and Derek McInnes clearly wants him to push up in the standard sort of way. You want the two centre-halves crossing the halfway line. They're effectively the sitters. And it then lets your two sitting midfielders become auxiliary eights, if you like, and basically we're overwhelming them. Thereafter, we're overwhelming them in their own box, totally overloading them, but we weren't very convincing in doing that. I think Dan Neil's good when he's got the space, but he's knocking at it when it gets up to the edge of their box, the Jagiellonia box. He's trying little flicks and what have you, and they're going straight to Jagiellonia players. And the problem then, of course, is our sitting midfielders are up in the opposition box as the opposition break on our suddenly naked, exposed centre-halves. It was not good. The ball comes shooting forwards. Fernandez slips. The ball goes across the... Big Fernandez slips. There's a great point-blank save by... Derek McInnes was talking before the game about how Jagiellonia Bialystok will get the ball into the box. We've got lots of crosses. They're really good at getting crosses into the box. We've got over two centre-halves here to stop. Just cut that out. What chance have you got when Big Fernandez just slips? We saw Chermiti slipping earlier up outside their box. That's not so bad for the striker, frustrating, but it's absolutely calamitous when your centre-half is completely slipping and just lets the ball run right past him. He's not there. He's caught out when he comes out for a ball on Friday night against Dundee United. He leaves a massive gap in defence, and then he's there in position tonight as the ball comes across from the same wing as it did against United for their goal. The same Jagiellonia's second goal tonight comes from a ball coming from the same bit, but he's not there by dint of slipping. It's a great point blank save at first from Ivan Pandor. Griggsy, Alan McGregor is back at Rangers, of course, as goalkeeping coach, and he's maybe saw him in that welcome to Rangers Yokota video from Rangers TV. There was a bit of Griggsy actually going through a drill, a point blank close range saves drill with Pandor, and he pulled off a great close range save. He just pushes the ball straight back out to one of their players who knocks it into the net, and that is it. It's the same player. Guy gets 2 goals, can't remember his name. The pitch is rather overhydrated, and the hydration break, however, it stops Jagiellonia capitalising even more brutally on the kind of collapse of Rangers at that point in time. Unblazered, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, then at McInnes during the hydration break. The temperature obviously at a point where you're thinking, oh, it's World Cup again. It gives him a chance to get in about the Rangers players, and he's got a group of people standing around him while he's got the suit on, but he's had to take the blazer off, the jacket off. He's got down to his shirt. He's got the tie loosened at the neck, the sleeves rolled up, and he's having to clap to get everybody's attention to hammer the point home while he's in pointing at various folk. That he looked like David Brent doing the dance in the office. He looks like the guy wearing the suit, didn't he? It was quite upsetting, but it worked to a certain point. He was obviously panicking, shoving the point home. Derek McInnes, this is when the good enough were absolutely collapsing in front of his eyes, despite having a fairly good start. And it worked a bit. We came out and weren't just as bad, but he's conceded 3 goals in his first 1 1/4 competitive games for Rangers at this point in time, and he was brought in to be pragmatic, to kind of tie things up at the back. Maybe we struggle to score goals, we struggle creatively, but the thing with Derek McInnes was it would seal things up at the back, and it's just not happening at all at this moment in time. Early days, Yokota is always available. He was always available, and he's trying his best. The fella, I mean, he's been all over the place. He's been travelling all over Europe, and he is Japanese. It's got to be a bit discombobulating for the fella, even if he's 26 years old and quite experienced in playing European football just now. His whole career's been getting sorted out over the last month or so, but he did no bad. He had a good. He's available, and he was trying to drive into the box. He was in the right place. He's just couldn't quite get the finishing touches on anything. Dan Neil and Diamandi, as I say, are trying stuff. It's just not how Asgard and Chukmani are trying to link up wee back flicks and 1-2s, and they're trying to get Romans involved as well down the left hand side. And sometimes we threatened, but nothing was really happening. And in the 43rd minute, a good save from Pandor. He slashed a moving kind of deflected shot from the corner of our box. This is just as we get towards half time. It took a deflection at the very last minute as well, so it was a really good save. Another one in injury time from a shot from further out as well, but in both cases our defending left a lot to desire. The worst moment probably in the build up to the half time after the first hydration break was Fernandes and Sterling again, and it is a new defensive centre-half pairing. I think they probably played together in at least one of the pre-season friendlies. I was only at the St Etienne game. We've had a few games behind closed doors and what have you, but it was Ben Godfrey playing alongside Manny Fernandes in their only competitive match so far on Friday night, and Big Dujon's had to go into centre half at short notice, and he does things well. Whatever he's a kind of Ryan Jack in extremis as Dujon Sterling. He's rarely fit, but when he is, he happens to be brilliant. He just comes in and is brilliant in whatever we ask him to do. So I'm going to end up blaming Fernandes for anything that goes wrong. But it is a brand new central defensive pairing that we've put out there. Maybe that's on the manager, but he didn't have any choice because it was like, didn't have any choice because of Ben Godfrey getting that injury on Friday night at Tannadice. But Dujon Sterling knocks a ball back. It's gentle, basic kind of pressing from Jagiellonia in their own half, which ends with Dujon Sterling knocking the ball back to Manny Fernandes is hanging right back, kind of halfway into his own halfway between the halfway line and his own box, and Dujon hits it firmly and straight infield to Manny, and Big Manny again just completely misjudges it, or maybe it was hit too firmly by Dujon. Either way, we put them clean through on goal, and we managed to push them, the player just wide enough. He hits the side net and we shot, but he really should have scored. It was dodgy. So at half time, that's it, 3 substitutions. Again, big substitutions at half time from Derek McInnes. It's only his second game in charge, his first European game in charge of Rangers, but it's slightly concerning. Devlin comes on, Finlay Curtis comes on, and Nico Raskin comes on. Chukwani goes off, Yokota goes off, Dan Neil goes off. I don't even know who took the captain's armband at that point, Nico Raskin. But the last time Nico Raskin came on for us at half time in a European qualifying match, we were 5-0 down, and we were 6-0 down within 5 minutes of him coming on. So this time it's even better. We're only getting beat 2-1, and the game finishes with us getting beat 2-1. It doesn't get any worse at all. The last time he played football, he's playing in a quarter final of the World Cup against Spain. It was Nico Raskin. So it's quite. We're asking a lot of him. I don't know, is Dan Neil going to become this season's Joe Rothwell? Are we going to see Dan Neil coming on, starting a game against Highland League side against Fraserburgh or something like that in the Scottish Cup in January? And go, Dan Neil, that's right, remember Dan Neil? We said, I hope not. I hope it's not going to be the same kind of scenario again there. It's too early to write anybody off at all. There's other factors at play here, but it was quite concerning. On comes Nico Raskin, and you're thinking, on this pitch, but everybody's slipping, going in their arse, he's going to go over, do his ankle in, and that's his transfers off, and also we can't use him in Europa League because it's going to be 6 months in traction for him probably. But he was, first of all, he's trying to put opposition players in traction, putting himself about, was Nico, and that was us. I missed the first 3 minutes of the second half because my laptop, there was I thought it was Rangers TV, but it turned out it was my laptop. I was using my wife's laptop because she's got the VPN on that. I don't have one on my laptop, so I don't really know how the charger thing worked properly. I just thought it was for the next thing. Bunk, it goes. It takes me 3 minutes to get that sorted. It waited for the whole of half time as well before it went off. It just as the game was about to restart. Didn't see the changes. I'm sitting there trying on my phone, trying to work out the BBC website what changes we've made and all that, try to see what it's gone. But we dominated the opening quarter of an hour, like we did at Tannadice with the changes at half time there. We dominated the kind of opening quarter of an hour without really stretching their keeper. The best one, I think, Finlay Curtis goes to play wide left. We retained the 4-2-3-1, I think. And Nico Raskin and Cammy Devlin, banter with Cammy Devlin, the journalists and the pre-match presser last night in Poland about the fact that him and Nico Raskin used to have battles against each other, Rangers against Hearts, especially at Tynecastle. What's it going to be like being chatting to each other? Aye, we have. And there they were, lo and behold, they're coming on as the rescue act, playing together in the second half. I think they were nominally the second two, but again, the mantra from Derek McInnes is get up there, push up, and Nico Raskin particularly more than happy to do that. I think Dio went kind of wide right, Asgard was into the 10 row, and it was Finlay Curtis wide on the left, and we immediately started playing a hell of a lot better. And I think the first quarter, up to the kind of hour mark, we were all over them. The best camped outside their 18-yard box with Raskin kind of quarterbacking it. That's assault on their 18-yard box, and occasionally we would get through, and it was usually Finlay Curtis that was getting played through, and he'd hit the byline and pull it back, but he'd maybe be a yard out with the ball back, or in the case of, there was a shot from Ross McCrory, this was later on in the half, that get deflected out for a corner. He had another shot as well, I think. We got quite close, but no cigar. The keeper pushes one just over the bar as well. But we did wait for the first quarter of an hour, and there was a ball from Raskin. I think he floated it from slightly on the right-hand side over to the left-hand side, and in comes Finlay Curtis, who nearly, the defender was just in front of him. He was nearly left with a kind of one-on-one with the goalkeeper. They were about 6 yards out. A great ball from Raskin, who was really up for it, but they made a couple of substitutions just after the hour mark. Agbanifo comes on. He's actually from Lons. He actually has been he's on loan from Lons. How boring must that be if you go something you're going to go on loan? You think, well, maybe that's no good. I'm going to get first team fit, but that's a good thing, and I'll get to with a different strip. The same fucking clubs get the same, particularly a strip like Lons' strip, which means a lot to the Lons. It's very distinctive, but it's not the most exciting in the world. But you go somewhere else, and you got to Poland, different country altogether. Like, imagine you start off and you do really well as a kid at Whitehill Welfare, then you end up playing for West Ham, and it's a different, set up, different arrangement of the claret and blue. But then Aston Villa come in and they buy you, but it doesn't really work out well at Aston Villa. And then they send you on loan to Burnley. I know, and that's where you start hitting the drink and all that, and you end up they loan you to Scunthorpe because it's really bad, and before you play out the rest of your career at Lugar Boswell before a late revival in your early 30s, which sees Trabzonspor Spore buying you, but you've the same colours all the time. You go for the Celtic, play at Celtic. Oh, I'm going to get loaned out to Ferencváros, so at least I'll get to what do they wear? Oh, for fuck's sake, you might wear a different strip, don't you? But so he's Agbenifo. He comes on and he has got the measure of two Romans in terms of pace, but he's not very. Once he gets in the box, luckily for us, he's not very accurate. His final ball or whatever, but he's given Romans a bit of a harder time, and they're starting to really push us back. Some bad finishing from them is the only thing that saves us from going 3-1 down. Again, the hydration break saves us. We come back out the next 10 minutes, we probe like hell. We're back on top of the game after the hydration break. I said that's when we're really properly camped outside the box. So Derek McInnes is tweaking stuff. He's making us better once he tweaks things every time. That's kind of how it should work. I got all the animus, all the bitterness out of my system about how supporters and other podcasters and news sources are treating Derek McInnes, giving him a lot more patience than they did to Russell Martin, who had Panathinaikos' scalp under his belt before he had a one each draw on his opening away from home league game last season, and that caused major ructions. But I got all the kind of the bitterness about the politics of that out of my system last night. We need to be patient with somebody. We just need to give somebody the time. Derek McInnes, he's got to do really badly for us not to give him the time. But I'm really worried about the European thing if we're going to try and bin that. But he does seem to be improving things when he can get a hold of the players. And the way we improved after both the hydration breaks tonight, a case in point, we've improved at half times. He's got a whole new team. He's got a whole new set of players, a whole new environment. Even though he knows Ibrox so well, it's in his system, it's in his blood. But he's when he does start making adjustments, they tend to improve. So that in itself is a good sign. But Dragojevic comes on for Asgard, and this lets Raskin basically go up and play 10, and this is good to see. Dragojevic, new signing from Partizan Belgrade. But at this point in time, we're pressing, and on comes Lawrence Shankland in the 85th minute, and instantly plays. Sharmiti stays. We're playing the two of them up front. We took off Ross McCrory at that point in time, so we're just properly going for it. So Ross McCrory had a few shots himself on goal. He's very much over the halfway line in this game. Ross McCrory having been scared to do so when he came on as a sub at Tannadice, but he's certainly no Tav in terms of offensiveness. Anyway, he's not that much. I don't think he's as good as Tav at the back either, but it's early days in his return to Rangers. On comes Lawrence Shankland for Ross McCrory, and straight away set piece. Simon Islands, I think it was a corner, and it's a nod down from Fernandez to like Gerd Muller stuff for Lawrence Shankland. He's just on the park though, and this ball hits him. When the goalkeeper's right on top of him, I think it's about 3 yards from goal, and the goalkeeper's come right on top of him, and Shankland turns round, swings on it. It's almost like he realises the ball's there too late. The goalkeeper just gets to it before him. Really great chance. And then I think it's about the 93rd minute. Nico Raskin, phenomenal ball to Lawrence Shankland, who reads it perfectly. High ball, dipping down into the box. Shankland heading towards goal, but nods it back deliberately. He's got a big Chermiti right in front of him, but he nods it back because he knows Finlay Curtis is coming in off the left, and Finlay Curtis takes it first time before it even hits the deck, and it hits the bar. I think it's because we played Saint Etienne, and it's round posts. It's bouncing off them. It's the revenge of Saint Etienne on our old square post, the square post at Hampden that we also had at Ibrox. The ball bounces back off the round post, and that was my chance to equalise. This is about halfway through the 5 minutes of injury time. The 95th minute, Fernandez falls over one more time. Is another slip. I don't know if it's the studs. I don't know if it's the amount of water that's on the pitch, but that's it. It's all Jagiellonia for the remaining minute of injury time. I missed out the bit about the referee in the injury time in the first half, going in for a 50-50, making it into a 33.33, 33.33, 33.33 infinity. It was the first time I've ever seen a ball being contested by three different teams with equal passion and vigour in the midfield of a football match. The referee goes in there, so he gets in the way of a 50-50 involving Asgard and a Polish opponent, and the ref, I think it's Macedon, no, it's Montenegrin, the ref. He has to give a drop ball, which Jagiellonia aren't happy about. He makes an arse of it, and it was just a bit, I just blow the whistle, get us down the tunnel. That kind of game, that kind of night, slightly calamitous in parts, not very convincing. I think it suited Jagiellonia a lot better because they won the bloody game. Of course, it suits them a lot better, but they're dangerous. They're very dangerous, but they're also very doable. And how many times have you said that and you end up getting done by said team? The last European tie Jagiellonia played before this, they get thumped 3-0 at home by Fiorentina in the knockout playoff stage round post after qualifying from the Conference League group stage last season. Fiorentina, couple of Conference League finals. There's only been 5 Conference League finals. They've been in 2 of them, semi-finalists as well. So highly experienced team. They go to Bialystok. They beat Jagiellonia 3-0 in the first leg. That's tie over, and Jagiellonia go over to Florence and win 3-0 in 90 minutes, take it to extra time, lose the game in extra time, lose the tie in extra time. But they're pretty dangerous away from home, Jagiellonia, and if we don't get ourselves sorted out, they will put us out and we would drop down into the Conference League playoffs, which you would hope we would win. But it's a gamble. It's this idea, Rangers supporters, I say, have been saying this to me. It's been something that's been discussed out loud. Somehow we've got to park our European progress if we want to start doing well in the league again. I find that a very dangerous. Anything that involves going backwards, anything that involves giving up something you've got, doesn't feel right. But it has to be said, last season we were giving up. It's a slow puncture last season. We got into the group stage of the Europa League and we're just awful after having been humiliated by Bruges in the Champions League qualifiers as well. But I don't know. The idea that we need to do this, we need to park our European ambitions to win the league, I don't think it makes actual sense as far as I'm concerned. You want to be playing a higher level of football all the time to try and keep yourself motivated, try and keep yourself sharp, playing at a decent level all the time. It's going to help you with your domestic form overall. It's not as if we've been winning league titles before we started qualifying for Europe again. It's are doing well in group stages of the Europa League. The squad feels huge. Now, we're supposed to be trimming the squad. We're expecting to lose at least Raskin, maybe Chermiti as well, I don't know. Big signings, but at the same time, we're still chasing the fella from PSV Eindhoven. We obviously try to make more signings as well. So every substitute coming on, you think, oh, he's decent. Oh, that's good. And I think there's always going to be somebody this season that you think, why is he in the bench? He should be a first team player. Why is he in the bench? There's going to be that's a good sign. So we've got the squad to do well, probably in the Conference League and the SPFL Premiership, but the Conference League is also just, I don't know, it could be horrible. There's no glamour, and I'm not the same amount of glamour for your regular, normal football punter. So maybe no particularly interest. You get a lot of games that are like soulless, a bit of a struggle at Ibrox. There's not as many groups. There's 2 less group games, 2 fewer group games in the Conference League than there is in the Europa League. But I don't know. I would just rather be in the Europa League. Champions League, obviously, that would just completely drain everything you've got, and you'd be taking regular doings. But the Conference League might be too far down, and it would just feel like a massive loss in our Europa League legacy that we have built up so brilliantly in the 2020s. Really, in 2018, it started under Steven Gerrard. I don't think I'll bother doing a preview for the Hibs game, troops. That's going to be on Sunday. And if there's anything major said in the press conference before that, in Derek McInnes' pre-Hibs press conference, I'll send out a wee quick podcast about that. But I don't think I'll bother doing a preview. They're playing. I don't know how they've got on. They're playing tonight. They're playing Skandia of Macedonia, who drew 1 each with Jagiellonia Bialystok in the group stage of last season's Conference League. So they're decent sides. Skandia, I don't know what happens here. I just hope that they take Hibs to a point where it's close enough that Hibs might want to hold something back or be kind of distracted by it. They've already played European football in a round earlier, and they had a bit of a scare and had to put in a lot of energy to defeating to getting through to this round, Hibs. But then they get beat at home by Motherwell at the weekend. So they're going to come to Ibrox with plenty to prove. And we know what they did to us last season when they came to Ibrox as well. And for what was supposed to be Tav's last game, it was Tav's last appearance at Ibrox. But they got a great record at Ibrox in recent years. Have Hibs, terrible opponents for us I just hope when they come to Ibrox on Sunday they've got other things on their mind, or they've been so destroyed by Scandia tonight that they don't want to play football, and we're going to have to step it up. If we're going to go out, if we need to beat Hibs, need to get a victory for Derek McInnes' Rangers at the third time of trying a competitive match to get the crowd on side, to get everybody, so that we'll sell out Ibrox against Jagiellonia for the second leg, and that's the kind of atmosphere, a good atmosphere it sounded like in the Chorton Arena tonight. But I think we could frighten the hell out of Jagiellonia with the Ibrox crowd, but we need to get the crowd on side. We need to beat Hibs on Sunday if we're going to win this tie. I want us to be in the Europa League so badly. I expect us to look more match fit this Sunday and more gelled together than I expect us to look knackered and stressed because we had a massive European night and a lot of travelling. Hibs are playing a bit later than us, but they're at Easter Road, so they're not going to be just as knackered by the travelling. They won't have played in quite the heat that we've played in tonight, but we've got such a huge squad. I think we're going to be we should look more as if we're gelling properly rather than actually knackered by the experience. Something's got to come together quickly. It can take a while. I remember Walter Smith, he's kind of changing the squad and what have you. And it's like 30 odd years ago. Remember we lost 3 games. We lost to AEK Athens, and Falkirk put us out of League Cup famously, and Hibs put us out of League Cup semi-final on the space of a few weeks. But then it all worked out fine in the end. But that was a Rangers team that was used to winning, that was in the middle of winning 9 league titles on the trot. We know at this point in time we need to get some serious momentum very quickly to get everybody on board with Derek McInnes. So 2-1, just lose, but for Rangers to win by a couple of goals against a Polish side at Ibrox doesn't sound like a massive shout, but it could be. Get a victory against Hibs, and you then could have a great night at Ibrox. There's enough peril involved to make what has become routine getting into we're not in the group stage yet, we just get through the playoff, but progress in the Europa League would suddenly become a massive thing, again, something that would get everybody excited because we've got a new manager as well. But a horrible night, Troops. I will talk to you at the latest after what's hopefully a much better afternoon, tea time-ish on Sunday against Hibs. Try and enjoy the first wee part of your weekend. Thanks, folks.